Welcome back to the cryptoworld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now the US election is taking place, which could be a big deal for Bitcoin moving forward based on this chart right here, which I'll talk about in just a moment, as we've just seen one of the worst days in history for the Bitcoin ETFs, while the price of Bitcoin has just confirmed a new bullish divergence in the short term and also taken out some more long positions, while Ethereum is also now confirming a new bullish divergence, potentially repeating history, while Solana is doing the same thing in the short term and running into critical support. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, just before we talk about the Bitcoin charts today, we need to talk about the Bitcoin news today, because just yesterday we saw one of the worst days in history for the spot Bitcoin ETFs in the US, because yesterday we saw a net outflow from the ETFs of over $500 million US. That is right, around 541 million US dollars left the Bitcoin ETFs just yesterday, just on Monday. In fact, the only individual spot Bitcoin ETF in the US that saw a net inflow yesterday was the BlackRock ETF that had an inflow of around 38 million US dollars, but all of the other ETFs either had basically no flows or net outflows. And so, of course, this major net outflow that we saw on Monday caused sell pressure, which basically caused a bit of a dump in the short term for the price of Bitcoin, as we could see right here. And obviously, I talked about in my last video here on the channel how leading up to the election results, there might be some uncertainty in the market, and usually people take less risk when there's uncertainty in the market, which means selling positions or selling assets. And that's exactly what we saw on Monday. People withdrawing from the Bitcoin ETFs, basically selling some of their Bitcoin essentially to basically reduce their risk. And honestly, I'll not be surprised if this continues, maybe even for another day while we're still waiting for those election results. There's still that uncertainty in the market, which creates risk, which means people might be selling some assets, for example. But after we get those results, that's where we have more certainty. And then basically there's less risk involved because things become more clear. But with that being said, if we're taking a look at the Bitcoin charts today on the monthly time frame, so each one of these candles is an entire month, and this is looking at pretty much Bitcoin's entire price history, going all the way back towards around 2011. And this chart simply shows what Bitcoin usually does around those US presidential elections. So first of all, the 2012 election, where obviously the Democrats won, we saw a major bull market following the election over the next 1 year or so, and then a bear market, and then a recovery leading into the next election, where obviously the Republicans won. Trump won here, where we saw a major bull market again, and then a bear market, and then a recovery, and then we saw the Democrats win again in 2020, and then we saw a bull market, and then a bear market, and then a recovery. So every single time over the last 3 cycles here, the 3 election cycles, we saw a bull market, bear market, recovery, but ultimately Bitcoin went higher throughout those years, regardless of if it was Democrat or Republican. So just keep that in mind moving forward. The Bitcoin price history, what the data actually says is that Bitcoin goes up no matter who wins here, whether it's Harris or Trump. We're likely going to have a bull market or a bullish market over the next 1 year approximately, and then maybe a bear market starting in maybe around a year from now, for example, if history is any indication. And if we're taking a look at this weekly Bitcoin chart right here, looking at the weekly Bitcoin MACD, as of right now, this is still currently looking bullish, showing some bullish momentum on the larger time frames. And the last time we saw a major bullish crossover in the weekly Bitcoin MACD was roughly around a year ago, last October back in 2023. And what came next was a major bull run over the next half a year approximately. And so despite what happens in the short term on small time frames here, obviously when we're zooming out, looking at the bigger picture, things are currently looking really bullish on the larger time frames. And if we're taking a look at the 4-day Bitcoin chart, right now the super trend indicator on this time frame still sitting in the green, indicating a larger bullish trend. And if we're taking a look at the 2-day time frame, right now we're still technically seeing bullish price structure breaking out above this line of resistance, which is currently sitting at just underneath $65,000. And technically we're forming higher lows and higher highs, which is bullish price structure. So for as long as we're holding above around 65k, for example, things are still looking pretty good here on the 2-day time frame. And if we're taking a look at the daily Bitcoin chart, obviously over the last 1 week or so, we saw a major rejection from this critical area of resistance, which is still acting as strong resistance, sitting in between around 72,000 to 74,000. But as of recording this video, we're currently bouncing from this area of support in between around 66.7k to 68 38.3k. So for now, that is the area of support to pay attention to, and we're currently respecting that area as support. And so ultimately, Bitcoin's kind of in a bit of a sideways price range in between this support and this resistance, similar to what we saw back here, for example. And if we were to break below around 66.7k, so below these previous lows on the daily candle closes here, in that case, the next area of support to the downside is sitting close towards around 64,500. But obviously, if we broke out above this area of resistance, we would essentially be entering into new all-time highs. If we can break out above 74,000, obviously that would be very, very bullish. And if we're zooming into the short term, looking at the 2-hour time frame, obviously over the last one day, we did see another drop to the downside, which I talked about in my last video. I said expect as a most likely scenario, potentially some people taking some profits off the table or reducing their risk by maybe selling a bit of Bitcoin, for example, heading into the election results, because there's still that uncertainty in the market. And so ultimately we saw another little drop here in the short term, which technically invalidated this bullish divergence right here. So this bullish divergence is now invalid because we broke below the previous low in the price and in the RSI, but we did enter into oversold territories on the 2-hour time frame in the RSI here, which means we basically bounced from oversold territories. And not only that, if we're looking at the 3-hour Bitcoin chart, we've just now confirmed a new bullish divergence with another lower low in the price in the candle closes, and now higher lows actually confirmed in the 3-hour Bitcoin RSI. So technically speaking, this is a new bullish divergence which has now been confirmed on the 3-hour time frame, meaning we're most likely going to see either a slight bullish relief or just some choppy sideways price action as the most likely outcome based on this alone. But once again, what else is happening besides this bullish divergence is, of course, the US election. So that could cause a lot of volatility over the next 1 or 2 days, for example. So just keep that in mind as well. It's not like this is the only thing that's impacting the price of Bitcoin right now. And if you actually want to trade these moves, no matter what direction they go, personally, I take most of my trades over on Bybit. So I'll make sure to leave a link to Bybit down below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link down below this video to make your Bybit account and deposit on that account, then you can get up to a $30,000 deposit bonus, but only if you use that link down below this video. And also, if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here, which is a 500 USDT position airdrop. So basically a free $500 trade as your first trade over on Bybit, but that is only if you use the link down below this video to make your Bybit account and deposit on that account. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out. Once again, first link down below this video. But for whatever reason, if you cannot access Bybit or if you cannot KYC on Bybit, there's also Bitnex, which is another crypto exchange similar to Bybit, but you don't need KYC for Bitnex, which means if you're in the US or the UK, for example, or another country where you might not be able to access Bybit, you can access Bitnex. So I'll also leave a link to Bitnex down below this video. And if you use that link, you can get up to a 5.5k deposit bonus, and only if you use that link, you can get an exclusive 10% discount on all trading fees on the Bitnex exchange forever, but that's only available if you use the link below this video to make your Bitnex account. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, once again, make sure to check this out. Links down below if you want to claim those extra bonuses. But with that being said, taking a look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, and over the last one day with that another drop to the downside here, we basically liquidated some long positions, took out some downside liquidity that was sitting at roughly around 67,000. But now that we've taken out that liquidity, we don't really have a lot of liquidity immediately to the downside. We have some liquidity, but not a whole lot. So we do have some sitting at around 66,000 to 66.7k, but that's not a massive amount of liquidity. And then we also have a small amount of liquidity at close to $70,000, give or take. But we do have a massive amount of liquidity at starting at around 73,000 and going up towards around 73.7k. So just above 73,000, we do actually have a large amount of liquidity to pay attention to. And if you want to know more about what this actually means, if you're new to the channel, then check out my last video here on the channel, because in that video, I went into a little bit more detail about how this can work in basically predicting the price of Bitcoin. But with that being said, of course, we have the US election coming up, and a lot of people are asking, how am I getting these numbers right here? And obviously, these are not my numbers. These are just the polymarket numbers based on basically the betting odds. And currently, there's over $3.2 billion US riding on this bet. And so obviously there's going to be a lot of money here that's either going to be won or lost based on obviously whoever wins this election. But with that being said, taking a look at Ethereum on the 3-day time frame, and right now the price of ETH is still trading in this massive sideways price range in between this area of support and this level of resistance. First of all, this area of support still sitting in between around 2150 to 2.2k, and this level of resistance is still sitting at around 2.8k. And if we're taking a look at the 12-hour time frame, obviously just like Bitcoin over the last one day, we saw another drop to the downside in the price of ETH, which is actually obviously bearish because we've broken below this area of support now, which was sitting in between around 2440 to 2475, and that comes after a perfect rejection, a retest and a rejection from this previous line of support, now acting as new resistance. Like I said yesterday, that was sitting at roughly around 2480, and that's pretty much exactly where we saw a rejection from. So that is acting as resistance right now. In case we were to see a bounce back to the upside, expect struggle around that area. And as for support right now, we do have some support at around 3350 to 3360 based on these lows right here, and more support closer towards 2.3k. But with that being said, if we're zooming into the shorter term, looking at the 3-hour time frame, just like Bitcoin on the 3-hour time frame, the price of ETH has also formed a new bullish divergence and now has actually confirmed the bullish divergence with a couple of green candle closes here, with lower lows confirmed in the price in the candle closes and higher lows now confirmed in the 3-hour Ethereum RSI. And the last time this happened was near the end of October, around 1 to 2 weeks ago. And what came next, at least over the next few days, was a slight bullish relief in the price of ETH. So based on history and based on what usually happens after a bullish divergence, we're due to see either a slight bullish relief or at least some choppy sideways price action. But remember, this time around, we have a US election happening basically right now and over the next couple of days, give or take, while we're waiting for the results. So keep in mind, this time might be different from what we saw last time. Obviously, we're likely going to see some more volatility this time around due to those other factors like the election. And so personally, just over the next couple of days, I would personally stay away from any really high leverage trades, potentially just stick to low leverage or just spot trades, because over the next couple of days, if we see very volatile moves, for example, based on the outcome, for example, that could liquidate any high leverage positions. So just keep that in mind. But as always, not financial advice. I'm just letting you know what I'd be looking at. But with that being said, taking a look at Solana on the daily time frame, and over the last one day, technically we have now confirmed a daily candle close back below 159, which is obviously a bearish signal. This is not what we want to see. But if we can very quickly break out back above this area on the price chart, it's possible this could have just been a fake out to the downside rather than a break to the downside. So just keep that in mind. The bulls out there need to very quickly reclaim this area in order to basically avoid a further drop to the downside. But if we struggle to reclaim this area and actually see a rejection from this area, kind of like what we saw for the price of ETH right here, we obviously came back up to try and retest this line of resistance, this previous support, but we basically failed the retest and saw a rejection from that level, confirming it as new resistance. If that happens for Solana here, and we struggle here and actually see a rejection, then that would further confirm the bearish break to the downside here, likely dropping the price down towards around 150, and the next major area of support is sitting in between around 137 to 142. So keep that in mind. Over the next couple of days will likely be very important for the price of Solana here on the daily time frame. But even if we can quickly reclaim this area of support right here, possibly now acting as new resistance in between 159 to 163, even in that case, obviously we still have significant resistance up here, sitting in between 183 to 187, which is pretty much exactly where we rejected from as expected. And if we're zooming into the shorter term, looking at the 4-hour time frame, obviously that previous bearish divergence in the short term already perfectly played out over the last 1 week, give or take. And right now we've just reconfirmed a new bullish divergence, because first of all, right here, we did have a small bullish divergence already confirmed with lower lows in the price and higher lows in the RSI. But since my last video, obviously we saw another drop to the downside, just like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and that confirmed a new lower low in the price in the candle closes, while the RSI is still forming and confirming higher lows. And so this has just simply extended the previous bullish divergence again with another low in the price and another low in the RSI. So just keep that in mind. We now have a new bullish divergence confirmed. And so technically speaking, we should be expecting either a slight bullish relief or just some choppy sideways price action here. But we still need to pay attention to resistance. We actually rejected multiple times from this area in between around 162 to 164. So right now, just in the short term, we do have resistance around there. But if we can actually see candle closes back above around 164, in that case, the next short-term resistance could be sitting at around 167.50, and above that, we have this area of resistance in between around 171 to 173. And as for short-term support, we are currently bouncing from this area of support where we've previously seen multiple important bounces from, and that's sitting in between 157 to 159. So just in the short term, that is the area of support to pay attention to. And honestly, I'll not be surprised if potentially over the next 1 day or so, we basically play out a little bit of a relief from this bullish divergence and then still struggle around this resistance, possibly causing some choppy sideways price action within this sideways price range. So keep that in mind moving forward. But as always, if you want to trade these moves in the price of any crypto, check out those links down below this video to claim those extra bonuses. And if you want to actually know how to trade crypto, no matter if the price is bullish, bearish, or chopping around sideways, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.